Earth had always been the underdog, a speck of blue and green in the far corner of the galaxy, ignored by the more powerful civilizations in the Galactic Council. The humans, though resourceful and driven, had been kept in check, both technologically and militarily. For centuries, they were viewed as a primitive species, their potential hidden beneath layers of bureaucratic control. It wasn't until the Council's insatiable greed led them to strip mine Earth's resources that the spark of rebellion began to smolder. The humans knew their place in the galaxy, subjugated, exploited, and powerless. Earth's leaders had long kept the appearance of cooperation, signing trade agreements and serving as a minor outpost for the Council's larger operations. But underneath the surface, humanity had been quietly preparing. Secret research stations, hidden military projects, and clandestine alliances with other oppressed species were all part of a long-term strategy to one day break free from the Council's dominance. And that day had come. The trigger was pulled when a Council fleet, led by a destroyer-class flagship called Oculus, entered Earth's solar system. Officially, the fleet's mission was to oversee the extraction of rare resources from Earth's asteroid belt. Unofficially, however, it was a show of strength, a reminder to humanity of who held the power in the galaxy. What the Council didn't know was that Earth had been monitoring their movements for years. General Marcus Ironclad Hayes, the leader of Earth's newly formed secret military force, had been preparing for this very moment. Under the guise of scientific exploration, humans had developed a series of experimental weapons, far more advanced than anything the Council could imagine. At the heart of these weapons was a project known as Prometheus, a weapon that the Council had no knowledge of. Prometheus was born in secret beneath the surface of Earth's moon. It was humanity's ultimate defense, a massive, semi-sentient warship powered by an AI that could manipulate time and space. It had been designed to be humanity's last resort, a countermeasure in case the Council ever pushed too far. The signal that activated Prometheus came at the most unlikely of times. A routine raid on Earth's lunar resources, conducted under the cover of a survey mission by the Oculus fleet. The strike was intended to cripple Earth's defense capabilities once again, but the unexpected activation of Prometheus turned the tables in an instant. The weapon, long dormant, came to life with a single, resounding command from its AI core: protect Earth. In a flash, the moon's surface shuddered as a massive shockwave rippled through space. The Oculus and its accompanying fleet were suddenly trapped in a field of gravity anomalies. Ships that had once been able to slip through space with ease were now stalled, their engines malfunctioning. Energy beams fired from Prometheus tore through the fleet's advanced shields, causing catastrophic damage. The human forces on Earth, who had been observing the battle from a distance, wasted no time. Ships that had been hiding in the deep black of the solar system launched in unison, their mission clear: to break the Council's grip on humanity once and for all. Earth's military, equipped with advanced weapons systems previously thought impossible for such a backwater world, joined the fray, striking from the shadows with precision and ruthless efficiency. The battle that unfolded was unlike any the Council had ever faced. There were no negotiations, no chances for retreat. The humans were fighting not for a peaceful resolution, but for survival. And for the first time in galactic history, humanity's defiance had a weapon to back it up. As the Council's fleet scrambled to regroup, a single transmission from Earth went out, echoing across the stars. Asterisk, you thought you could use us. Now, you will learn what happens when you awaken a sleeping giant. And with that, Earth's savage revenge had begun. The Galactic Council was not accustomed to being challenged. For millennia, It had maintained an iron grip on the galaxy, a collection of species too advanced, too powerful to be defied. A handful of rebellions had come and gone over the years, but nothing ever posed a serious threat to the Council's reign. Earth, in their eyes, was just another backwater planet, primitive and beneath notice. A minor irritant that could be controlled with force, a flick of the wrist. But now Earth had awakened, and in the aftermath of the surprise attack, the Council was left reeling, unwilling to accept what had happened. Admiral Vector of the Zelrath fleet paced in the High Command Center aboard the Pinnacle, the flagship of the Council's response force. The Zelrath were one of the Council's most feared species, their vast fleets known for their tactical superiority and their ruthless precision. He was not used to failure, and the loss of the Oculus fleet, the first major defeat the Council had suffered in centuries, was an embarrassment he could not allow to stand. The Admiral's claws drummed nervously against the command chair. How did they do it? How could humans possess such technology? He growled, his voice edged with disbelief. A screen in front of him flickered with the grim report of Earth's capabilities: gravitational anomalies, time distortion fields, antimatter weapons. All these technologies were considered far beyond the reach of any species that hadn't already ascended to the higher echelons of galactic civilization. Certainly not Earth. "It's impossible," he muttered, more to himself than to his crew. "We've underestimated them, but we will correct that mistake." The Council, deeply offended by this unprecedented humiliation, dispatched a diplomatic envoy to Earth. The idea was simple: send a message, remind humanity of their place in the galaxy, and reassert control. They would crush the rebellion before it had a chance to spread. The envoy, led by Empress Sarith of the Vectrix and accompanied by a fleet of elite negotiators, was dispatched to Earth with one singular objective: to force humanity's unconditional surrender. It was a simple mission, one that, in their arrogance, the Council believed would be a mere formality. On Earth, President Evelyn Mercer watched the incoming transmission with grim resolve. Her advisors buzzed around her, preparing for what was to come. The Council would undoubtedly demand Earth's capitulation. They would try to treat this war as a minor incident, to be swept under the rug with a few empty promises and hollow assurances. But this time, President Mercer was not willing to submit. "They think we'll bend," she said quietly, her gaze focused on the flickering image of Empress Sarith. "But this time they're wrong." Mercer's team had already prepared a response. A declaration of Earth's independence, reinforced by a new weapon, more terrifying than anything the Council had seen. While the emissaries had expected a show of subjugation, what they found instead was a firm refusal. The message Mercer sent out to the galaxy was not one of negotiation, but of rebellion. "Humanity is not your servant. You have taken from us for far too long. Now we take what is ours." On the surface, the Council believed this was just another outburst from a defiant species they had long dominated. In their arrogance, they believed that Earth's military forces, still largely undeveloped in comparison to their own, would be crushed with the arrival of their next fleet. They underestimated not just Earth's military capacity, but the fierce resolve of its people. The Council, still stunned by the loss of Oculus and the sudden eruption of human resistance, planned their next move. They would send another fleet, bigger and stronger. They would teach Earth a lesson it would never forget. But as their forces assembled, they failed to recognize that humanity wasn't just fighting to survive anymore. They were fighting for a new future, a future in which they were no longer ruled by the whims of the Galactic Council. The war was just beginning, and Earth had no intention of losing. This section establishes the Council's response to the unexpected human resistance, showing their initial disbelief and arrogance in underestimating Earth. The tension builds as the humans stand their ground, setting the stage for the larger conflict that will ensue. In the weeks following Earth's declaration of war, the Galactic Council struggled to maintain its usual composure. Their fleets were in disarray, scattered across the galaxy in a desperate attempt to rebuild their strength. Earth's surprise defense, coupled with the sudden appearance of Prometheus and the brutal effectiveness of human tactics, left the Council's forces licking their wounds. What had been intended as a minor skirmish had escalated into an all-out galactic war, and Earth, once thought of as an insignificant player, now stood as a formidable adversary. The Council's first response was predictable, an even greater show of force. A massive fleet, a coalition of ships from the Council's most powerful species, was assembled to put an end to humanity's rebellion. Admiral Vector of the Zelrath fleet, still reeling from the loss of the Oculus fleet, was promoted to lead the invasion, given full command of the Retribution Force. His orders were simple: destroy Earth, wipe out its defenses, and bring President Mercer to her knees. But Earth had already adapted, and human ingenuity was proving to be the most dangerous weapon of all. General Marcus Hayes, Earth's lead military strategist, had anticipated the Council's next move. His team of engineers, scientists, and military experts had worked tirelessly to create a network of defenses that stretched far beyond Earth's atmosphere. Every orbital station, asteroid base, and even Earth's own moon had been fortified with human-made weaponry and technologies that had once been dismissed as impossible. Unbeknownst to the Council, a series of covert operations had already been underway for months. Small cells of human forces, some composed of former soldiers, some of civilian volunteers, had been infiltrating Council territories, sowing chaos and sabotage wherever they could. The attacks were subtle, designed to destabilize the Council's supply lines and communication networks. With each successful strike, the human resistance grew bolder and more confident. Earth's reach was extending far beyond its solar system. Back on Earth, President Evelyn Mercer knew that the war was far from over. As much as her military had pushed the Council back, Earth was still heavily outnumbered. The Council's next fleet would be far larger, its ships more advanced. To survive, Earth needed to strike at the very heart of the Council's power, cripple its ability to coordinate, and create divisions within its ranks. Mercer turned to an unlikely ally, the Sindari, a telepathic species who had long been oppressed by the Council. The Sindari had offered aid to humanity in the past, but Earth had always been too cautious, too isolated to accept their help. Now, however, it was clear that any chance of victory would require cooperation between those willing to fight for their freedom. Together, humans and Sindari devised a daring plan, a coordinated series of cyber attacks, telepathic infiltrations, and physical sabotage, all designed to breach the heart of the Galactic Council's central command, the Nexus Relay. The Nexus Relay was a massive space station that connected the disparate systems of the Council, a lifeline for the flow of information and strategy. If Earth and its allies could sever this lifeline, the Council's ability to respond to Earth's insurrection would be crippled. The operation was named Shadow Strike, and its timing had to be perfect. In the days leading up to the strike, Earth's forces conducted feints and distractions, luring the Council's attention away from the Nexus Relay. Meanwhile, the human resistance, along with their Sindari allies, moved stealthily toward the station. They faced incredible dangers, from Council warships patrolling the area to sophisticated counterintelligence measures designed to catch any intruders. But despite the odds, the human forces succeeded. In the dead of space, aboard a stolen Council stealth ship, the first wave of Earth's Shadow Strike operatives breached the Nexus relay. Their mission was simple: disable the station's communications, cut off its power, and send the Council into disarray. As the operation unfolded, General Hayes watched with a mixture of tension and hope. He knew this was a pivotal moment. If they succeeded, Earth's chances of winning the war would rise exponentially. If they failed, humanity would be forced to retreat, and the Council's retaliation would be swift and merciless. But as the first explosions rang out across the Nexus relay's defenses, Hayes allowed himself a brief smile. Earth was no longer just fighting for survival. They were fighting for their future. This segment of the story builds on Earth's expanding reach and their increasing use of covert operations to destabilize the Galactic Council. It focuses on human ingenuity and alliances with other oppressed species, showing how Earth's resistance grows both in strength and scope. The tension of the upcoming mission, Shadow Strike, sets up the next part of the conflict and positions Earth as a growing force in the galaxy. The Shadow Strike mission had been a success, and the Nexus relay, once the beating heart of the Galactic Council's operations, had been crippled. But Earth's victory was fleeting. The Council, though reeling from the loss of its command structure, was far from defeated. They mobilized quickly, and a new fleet, larger, more powerful, and more vengeful than any before it, was assembled to crush humanity's burgeoning rebellion. Admiral Vector, humiliated by his failure to destroy Earth, was once again given command of the largest assault the galaxy had ever seen. He knew the time for negotiations had passed. The humans had dared to fight back, and that could not be tolerated. Earth's defiance needed to be extinguished, and the Admiral intended to do so with a show of overwhelming force. The fleet, a vast armada of warships and dreadnoughts, was positioned at the outer edge of the Mornak asteroid belt, a seemingly inconspicuous region of space that separated Council-controlled territory from the uncharted fringe. The asteroids, floating in their chaotic, turbulent dance around the star, were home to a number of mining operations, but to the Council, the region was nothing more than a backwater. General Marcus Hayes had anticipated this move. He had studied the Council's tactics, and he knew that their next strike would come with the full fury of their might. But he also knew that the belt, though a hazardous region of space, could be used to his advantage. The asteroids, with their dense clusters and unpredictable gravity wells, would provide perfect cover for a surprise ambush. If Earth could catch the Council off guard, it might buy them enough time to disrupt their plans and gain the upper hand once again. The plan was bold, almost reckless, but desperate times called for desperate measures. Earth's fleet, though still far smaller in number, was made up of highly advanced ships, many equipped with technology far ahead of anything the Council possessed. The human ships had been designed for agility and precision, able to slip through the debris of the asteroid belt with unparalleled ease. A few rogue Council ships had learned this firsthand when they had attempted to track Earth's forces through the belt, only to vanish without a trace, never to return. As the battle began, the Council fleet moved confidently toward the heart of the asteroid ring. Their sensors scanned the empty space, certain they would find Earth's forces preparing for a full-on confrontation. What they didn't anticipate was the sudden appearance of human ships from behind the cover of the massive asteroids, ships that seemed to materialize out of nowhere, appearing and disappearing with ghostly precision. At first, the Council thought they were seeing mirages, until the first volley of laser fire hit their lead warship, Dreadfury. The shields of the mighty dreadnought flickered, and a secondary explosion rocked its hull. The entire fleet, expecting an easy victory, was now plunged into chaos. Vector's ships, while superior in size and firepower, were unprepared for the guerrilla tactics employed by the humans. The asteroid belt, once considered an obstacle, was now a battlefield that favored the smaller, more agile Earth fleet. General Hayes had anticipated the chaos. The human ships, equipped with cloaking devices and advanced weapons systems, darted in and out of the rocky maze, using the asteroids as shields, attacking in precise, devastating bursts before retreating into the cover of the belt once more. The Council ships, unable to track the movement of their enemies through the dense asteroid field, were left vulnerable to hit-and-run attacks. The Dreadfury was the first to fall, its hull split open by a well-placed antimatter warhead. The Oculus, the pride of the Council's navy, was next, crippled by a barrage of EMP pulses that short-circuited its weapons and engines. Earth's fleet was unrelenting. With each precise strike, the Council fleet was decimated. Admiral Vector, enraged, ordered his fleet to regroup and launch a counterattack. But the battle was slipping from his grasp. Even as reinforcements arrived, the human fleet continued to outmaneuver them, exploiting every weak point in the Council's formations. In the heart of the asteroid field, a final showdown occurred. Vector's flagship, Oblivion, came face-to-face with Prometheus, the warship that had become a symbol of humanity's newfound might. The two titans clashed in the vast emptiness of space, their weapons flashing like stars in the void. But it was clear from the start. Prometheus was far superior. Its energy shield absorbed every blast from the Oblivion's cannons, while its own weapons tore through the Council ship's defenses. In a final desperate act, Vector ordered his fleet to retreat. The battle had been lost. As Earth's fleet emerged victorious from the chaos of the asteroid ring, General Hayes allowed himself a rare moment of triumph. The Council had been soundly defeated, and their most powerful fleet was in ruins. But Hayes knew this victory was only a fleeting one. The Council would not give up so easily. The war was far from over. This part heightens the tension and action of the conflict, showing how Earth's underdog forces are able to use the environment and superior tactics to outsmart the vastly more powerful Council fleet. The setting in the asteroid ring gives an exciting backdrop for the battle, and the victory serves to empower the human forces, while also reminding them of the long road ahead. The victory at the Mornach asteroid belt had shaken the Galactic Council to its core. For the first time in history, humanity had not only survived, but decisively defeated one of the most advanced fleets in the galaxy. Word of the battle spread quickly through the Council's ranks, igniting fear and uncertainty. Admiral Vector, still reeling from the loss of the Dreadfury and the Oculus, was recalled to Council headquarters to face a tribunal. The losses were significant: tens of thousands of soldiers, hundreds of ships, and an incalculable amount of resources. But what truly troubled the Council was something far deeper: the realization that humanity, once a mere afterthought, was no longer an easy target. In the weeks following the battle, President Evelyn Mercer called for a summit of Earth's leaders. The war had taken its toll, but it was clear that humanity was no longer fighting to merely defend itself. The Council had underestimated the strength of Earth's resolve, and that, perhaps, was the greatest weapon of all. Mercer stood at the podium in a vast underground war room beneath Earth's capital, addressing a room full of generals, strategists, and diplomats. The mood was somber but resolute. "We've struck a blow," she said, her voice steady. "But the Council won't stop. They'll regroup, rebuild, and come at us harder than ever. We need to think bigger, act faster. If we're going to win this war, we need to cripple the Council's ability to fight back for good." General Marcus Hayes, the mastermind behind Earth's military resurgence, stepped forward with a new strategy. "We've learned from our successes, and we know the Council's weaknesses now. But it's time to take the fight to them, not just in battle, but on every front." Hayes' plan was simple yet audacious. Earth would launch a series of coordinated offensives across Council space, not just against their military forces, but against their economic and political systems. Humanity would target supply chains, cripple resource mining, and cut off critical trade routes. The goal wasn't just to win battles, but to exhaust the Council's will to fight. And to do that, Earth would need help. The Sindari, Earth's telepathic allies, had already shown their value in the Shadow Strike operation. Now, they offered to extend their reach even further into the minds of the Council's most influential leaders. Their ability to infiltrate thoughts and emotions could be a devastating weapon in weakening the resolve of Council officials. The humans would use this advantage both to gather intelligence and to create fractures within the Council's leadership. But even more crucial was the formation of a clandestine coalition of oppressed species. The Vectrix, the Sindari, and others who had long suffered under the Council's rule rallied behind Earth's banner, eager to fight back against the tyrannical regime. Together, these diverse factions represented a new force in the galaxy, one that could challenge the status quo. Meanwhile, on the front lines, the war raged on. Earth's forces began striking at Council supply depots and resource mining stations deep within Council space. These weren't huge battles, just small, precise, and relentless operations that left the Council scrambling. Ships would vanish into the darkness of space, only to reappear at the next target, leaving behind nothing but destruction. The strategy was simple: hit fast, hit hard, and keep the enemy guessing. The Council couldn't afford to mobilize their vast fleets against every skirmish, and as time passed, their supply chains began to crack under the pressure. On the farthest reaches of Council territory, a lone human ship, the Gorgon, entered a mining system that was vital to the Council's energy reserves. Captain Elena Ward, one of the most daring and decorated officers in Earth's military, commanded the operation. Her orders were to infiltrate the system and destroy the main refinery, a facility that processed rare minerals critical for the Council's fleet propulsion systems. It was a high-risk mission, but Ward had pulled off impossible operations before. As the Gorgon dropped out of hyperspace, the crew quickly set to work. They used cloaking technology to sneak past the outer defenses, then planted explosive charges throughout the refinery's core. Within minutes, the facility was in flames, and as the shockwave rippled outward, it disabled several nearby Council warships. The energy crisis created by the loss of the refinery would set back the Council's fleet production by months. Back on Earth, General Hayes received word of Ward's success. It was a small victory in the grand scheme of the war, but it was the kind of strike that sent ripples across the galaxy. The Council, once untouchable, was no longer safe behind its walls of technology and military might. Humanity had proved it could not only hold its ground, but strike with precision. And that was something the Council could no longer ignore. The war was shifting in humanity's favor, but President Mercer knew the hardest battles were yet to come. The Council would regroup, rebuild, and strike back with everything they had. But Earth, now fully awake to the reality of its power, was ready for whatever came next. In this part, Earth begins to turn the tide of the war through a multifaceted strategy of sabotage, economic warfare, and political destabilization. The inclusion of Earth's allies and the formation of a coalition of oppressed species adds depth to the resistance movement, while Captain Elena Ward's daring mission demonstrates humanity's growing ability to hit the Council where it hurts. The stage is set for a long, hard fight, one that humanity will need to win if it is to secure its future. As Earth's resistance continued to disrupt the Galactic Council's infrastructure, the political and military leadership of the Council was unraveling. For the first time in millennia, cracks were beginning to form within the Council's once monolithic unity. The coordinated attacks, economic sabotage, and now even whispers of rebellion within Council factions threatened to destabilize the very foundation of their dominion. It was not just a matter of military might. It was a battle for the hearts and minds of the galaxy. And despite the Council's arrogance, humanity had shown the galaxy something they had never thought possible: a willingness to fight back and an unyielding determination to win. In the hidden chambers of the Council's High Command, an emergency summit was called. Empress Sarith of the Vectrix, long considered the voice of reason within the Council, stood at the head of the table, her regal posture betraying little of the turmoil within her mind. The losses had been staggering: tens of thousands of ships destroyed, entire resource fields depleted, and key installations crippled. But what terrified her most was something far more insidious: the growing dissent within the Council's ranks. There were murmurs, rumours, and even secret alliances forming between factions that had once been united by the power of the Council. These humans, Empress Sorith began, her voice cold but composed, they are not what we expected. We have underestimated them for far too long. Their resilience, their ingenuity, it's unlike anything we've encountered. Admiral Vector, who had recently been reinstated to his command, slammed his fist onto the table. There are nothing but pests. His voice echoed through the command center, raw with frustration. We've crushed rebellions before. This is no different. You speak too hastily, Sorith warned, her sharp gaze cutting through Vector's anger. This is different. Earth has made allies, powerful ones. The Sindari, the Vectrix, and others. They're uniting the oppressed species across the galaxy. If we do not act decisively, this war could spiral out of our control. The room fell silent as the weight of her words sank in. Vector seethed, but did not respond. He knew Sorith was right. The Council's forces were spread thin, and even their most powerful fleets were being worn down by guerrilla tactics and constant strikes against their infrastructure. This wasn't just a war for resources anymore. It was a war for the very soul of the galaxy. In the wake of their summit, the Council quickly realized that they could no longer afford to treat humanity as a mere nuisance. Earth was growing stronger by the day, and if the Council did not act soon, they risked losing everything. The response came swiftly. A new top-secret operation was launched, Exodus Protocol. It was the Council's ultimate contingency plan, designed to eliminate Earth's leadership in a single decisive strike. The plan called for a full-scale invasion of Earth's home system, one that would overwhelm its defenses, neutralize humanity's military command structure, and break their will to fight. The centerpiece of Exodus Protocol was the creation of the Eclipse Dreadnought, a warship so massive and powerful that it could wipe out an entire fleet with a single blow. With an experimental weapon capable of generating artificial singularities, miniature black holes, the Eclipse could tear through any defense humanity could muster. Meanwhile, Earth's leaders, aware of the mounting Council response, prepare for the worst. The attacks on Council territory had not gone unnoticed, and General Hayes knew that their next battle would be the most critical yet. Earth had grown stronger, but they had also made powerful enemies. The Eclipse Dreadnought was a game-changer, a weapon that could turn the tide of the war in a single strike. Mercer, Hayes, and their council of generals and diplomats debated their options. They could continue their relentless strikes, weakening the Council's forces and economy. But if the eclipse came to Earth's doorstep, all of their efforts might be for nothing. The Council was willing to risk everything to win this war, and if the eclipse was unleashed, humanity's rebellion could be extinguished before it ever had a chance to truly take hold. The stakes had never been higher. "We need to strike first," General Hayes said, his voice hard and resolute. "We cannot let the eclipse reach Earth. We need to find it, destroy it, or at least cripple it before it gets here. If we don't, this will be the end of us." President Mercer nodded, her face grim. "This isn't just about survival anymore. We fight not just for Earth, but for the future of the galaxy. If the Council wins, the cycle of oppression will continue forever. We can't let that happen." The clock was ticking. Earth was running out of time. In this part, the tension within the Galactic Council reaches a boiling point as their internal divisions grow, and the formation of the Exodus Protocol introduces the most dangerous weapon the Council has ever created, the Eclipse Dreadnought. Meanwhile, Earth's leadership is forced into a desperate strategy to prevent the Council's final weapon from being unleashed, setting the stage for the next chapter of this high-stakes galactic conflict. Time was running out. The Eclipse Dreadnought, the Council's final gambit, was now on its way to Earth's home system. With its experimental singularity weapon, capable of wiping out entire fleets with ease, the Eclipse was the galaxy's most formidable weapon. The Council, with its immense power, had unleashed this devastating force in the hope that it would bring Earth to its knees. They believed that a single strike from the eclipse would crush humanity's spirit, erasing the rebellion before it could spread further. President Evelyn Mercer, along with General Marcus Hayes and the other members of Earth's High Command, watched as the intelligence reports flooded in. The eclipse was moving fast, too fast. It was already near the outer rim of Earth's solar system, its course set for a direct path to Earth's home planet. "We don't have much time," General Hayes said, his tone grim as he studied the holographic display of the incoming dreadnought. "If we don't stop it now, Earth is finished." The gravity of their situation weighed heavily on everyone in the room. Earth had already made tremendous strides, but a single weapon like the eclipse could undo everything in a matter of minutes. There were no more feints or distractions to be made. This was the final act. Mercer, however, had no intention of giving in. "We've survived this long by staying one step ahead. We're not going to let the eclipse break us. We'll find a way to stop it." As the final plans were drawn up, the resistance forces prepared for a desperate counterattack. Humanity had learned from its earlier successes, and now the only chance they had to stop the eclipse lay in launching an all-out assault on the dreadnought before it could reach Earth. But this was no simple mission. The eclipse was guarded by the best fleet the Council had left, elite warships with advanced technology and superior firepower. Earth's fleet, though growing in strength and number, was still outclassed in terms of raw power. The operation would require more than just brute force. It would demand creativity, strategy, and sacrifice. General Hayes stood before the assembled leaders, laying out the plan. "We're going to use everything we have. Our fleet will launch a distraction, drawing the Council's attention and pulling their forces away from the eclipse. Meanwhile, a smaller, faster strike team will board the dreadnought. We'll infiltrate its command center, disable its weapon systems, and buy ourselves enough time to take it down." The room fell silent as the enormity of the plan set in. Taking on the eclipse was nothing short of suicide. The Council's ship was enormous, heavily armoured, and bristling with weapons capable of obliterating anything in its path. The idea of boarding the Eclipse was not just dangerous, it was practically a death sentence. But it was Earth's only shot. Captain Elena Ward, the officer who had led some of Earth's most successful covert operations, stepped forward. "I'll lead the boarding team," she said with quiet determination. "We know what we're up against, but if anyone can get us inside, it's us." Our words were met with murmurs of approval, but there was a clear, unspoken understanding that this would be their most dangerous mission yet. If Ward and her team failed, Earth's last hope would be extinguished. Mercer's gaze hardened. "You'll have the full support of Earth's forces, Captain. The rest of us will fight with everything we have. If we're going down, we'll make sure the Council knows they'd lost something important in the process." With the plan in place, Earth's fleet moved into position, spreading out in a line between the incoming eclipse and the inner planets. The distraction would take place at the farthest reaches of the solar system, where the Council's fleet would be drawn into a series of well-coordinated skirmishes designed to delay their approach. Meanwhile, Ward's team prepared for the harrowing task ahead. They would be using one of Earth's stealth ships, a vessel designed to slip through enemy lines undetected. The team was small but skilled, elite operatives who had trained for years for this moment. Their mission was clear: infiltrate the Eclipse, disable its weapon systems, and open the door for a final, decisive strike. As the countdown to the battle began, Earth's forces stood ready for the greatest challenge they had ever faced. The Eclipse was almost within firing range of Earth, its weapons primed for destruction. But the humans weren't about to surrender without a fight. They would either stop the Eclipse or die trying. In this part, Earth prepares for the final confrontation with the Eclipse dreadnought. The stakes have never been higher, and the risk of failure is overwhelming. The plans to board the dreadnought and disable its weapons systems introduce a high-stakes, action-packed mission that will determine the fate of Earth. The tension mounts as both sides prepare for what will undoubtedly be a defining moment in the war. The moment had come. The Eclipse dreadnought loomed just beyond Earth's orbit, a monstrous shadow that promised to erase humanity from existence. Its singularity weapon, capable of creating miniature black holes, was primed and ready to obliterate Earth's defenses and crush the rebellion in a single devastating blast. The fate of billions rested on the shoulders of Captain Elena Ward and her elite strike team, who were about to embark on the most dangerous mission humanity had ever undertaken. The air aboard Earth's flagship, Prometheus, was thick with tension. General Marcus Hayes stood in front of a holographic display, studying the positions of the Council's fleet and the dreadnought. The countdown was ticking. "We don't have much time," Hayes said, his voice steady but strained. "Ward, your team will have one chance to board that ship. Get in, disable the singularity weapon, and give us a shot at stopping the Eclipse. We can't afford to fail." Captain Ward nodded, her face grim but resolute. "We won't fail, General." She turned to her team, a small but seasoned group of operatives. Lieutenant James Rook Carter, a former Special Forces sharpshooter, Dr. Cassie Liu, an explosives expert, and Ensign Sofia Alvarez, a skilled hacker. Each one had trained for years for this moment. Each one understood the stakes. "We've been through worse," Rook said with a wry smile. "Let's finish this." The team suited up in their stealth armor, which would make them nearly invisible to the Eclipse's sensors. Their ship, Shadow Strike, was already waiting in the hangar. The stealth vessel had been modified to infiltrate the Council's defenses, and the team had one chance to slip through the heavily guarded perimeter of the Eclipse before it reached Earth. Outside, the battle raged. Earth's fleet, though vastly outnumbered, was fighting with everything they had. The distraction mission had begun, with human ships engaging the Council's warships far from Earth's orbit, drawing their attention away from Ward's team. Ward's heart raced as Shadow Strike moved into position, its engines humming silently as it glided toward the heart of the Eclipse's defensive perimeter. The vast dreadnought was surrounded by a fleet of smaller ships, but Earth's forces were doing their job, causing enough chaos to keep the Council distracted. Approaching the target, Ward said, her voice calm despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. "Get ready." The stealth ship darted toward the Eclipse, weaving in and out of asteroid fields and debris, using the natural terrain to avoid detection. They had to be close, too far out, and the Eclipse's sensors would catch them. Too close, and the dreadnought's weapons would obliterate them before they even had a chance to board. With a final lurch, Shadow Strike docked on the underside of the Eclipse, using its cloaking systems to remain unseen. The team exited quickly, their boots hitting the cold metal of the dreadnought's hull. It was time. Inside the Eclipse, the team moved swiftly, cutting through the heavily guarded corridors. Ward led the charge, her heart pounding in her chest as the weight of the mission pressed down on her. They had minutes, not hours. The Singularity weapon had to be disarmed before it could be fired. "Liu, on me," Ward ordered. The explosives expert moved ahead, placing charges to disable key systems that would delay any counterattack. "Carter, Alvarez, find the control room. I'll meet you there." The team split up, moving through the twisting hallways of the massive ship. They encountered resistance, Council guards, robotic drones, and automated defenses, but Earth's soldiers were prepared for this. With each obstacle, they fought back with lethal efficiency, cutting down enemies before they could raise an alarm. It wasn't long before Ward and her team reached the heart of the Eclipse. The Singularity weapons control room was heavily fortified, but Alvarez's skills with hacking systems had already compromised the access point. As the doors slid open, the team rushed in, weapons raised. "Disarm it," Ward ordered. Alvarez went to work, fingers flying across the control panel as alarms began blaring through the ship. The countdown to the Singularity weapons activation had already begun. "We don't have much time," Alvarez muttered, sweat pouring down her face. "I'm in. I can disable the core, but I need another minute." Ward's eyes darted to the door. The sound of approaching reinforcements echoed down the corridor. "Make it fast." As Alvarez worked, the rest of the team prepared for the fight of their lives. The doors to the control room shuddered as enemy forces neared. And then, silence. With a final keystroke, Alvarez deactivated the Singularity weapon. The entire ship seemed to shudder. The power was cut, and the countdown was stopped. But the victory was short-lived. The Eclipse's internal defenses were coming. Ward and her team turned to face them, knowing that the hardest part of the mission was yet to come. But they had won a critical battle in a war that still hung in the balance. In this final part, Earth's strike team successfully boards the Eclipse dreadnought, infiltrates its heart, and disables the Singularity weapon just in time to save Earth. The tension is palpable as the mission comes down to the wire, with the fate of humanity hanging by a thread. Though the immediate threat is neutralized, the team faces more peril ahead, but the victory represents a turning point in the war, a victory fueled by human resilience, resourcefulness, and unwavering determination.